The other one I want to talk about is Google Business Profiles. Um, I don't have another diagram for this. You don't have to worry about me over explaining things here. But I'm just going to give it to you straight. Like you want to set up a group in your Google Business Profile account. That group is where your corporate brand level managers would access and be added as users to. As that group, all the Z's would get added underneath there. So anybody in that group can see all the Z's and manage all the Z's at different, depending on the permissions. But that means you don't have to add your team members or vendors or connect tools to each individual profile. And so it creates the separation where your team can, you have turnover, you have different team members that come on, you hire different vendors, things change. All you're doing is changing and updating your group account. And that group, anybody who has access to that group account has access to all the Z accounts underneath that, where the Z's don't get notifications that there's new users being added or things are changing. That triggers them to freak out. So I definitely recommend putting things in your group. You can actually set up your group in a way like an agency does, even though you're not an agency, but it's something we've done that gives a little bit more trust in Google's eyes for the more higher risk Google Business Profile categories. When I say higher risk, there's categories that Google really scrutinizes because there's lots of spammers in there trying to generate leads out of there. One comes to mind is water damage restoration in the home services space, roofing in the home services space, law firms, things like that. Google knows these are the type of industries that people are really targeting to generate leads out of because there's so much money in it. And so they really scrutinize those, which means activity levels and things can definitely put you at risk of getting your account suspended because Google's not sure if you're real. And so you want every trust factor as possible. And so anyway, when you set your group up, you could set up as an agency and get some verification there, but it's not something that Google's out there actively talking about, but it's something that we've done and saw some success in there. Again, this is another scenario where when you set the Google Business Profile up and you add the Z as a owner, use their business email, even though they might tell you, I have my own Gmail. No, use their business Gmail. The activity of that person with their Gmail will then become a risk factor for that profile. Again, Eric, you're a traveler, you go to Mexico a lot. You happen to be in Mexico, you open your Google Business Profile to reply to a review. Google is just a robot. They just see that login from Mexico, and depending on how sensitive they are in your industry, they might suspend your listing just for that alone, and I've seen it. So to prevent against that, that could happen with your business email, but your business email is gonna have a lot less activity and just be used for business. So it's and again, worst case scenario happens, you can log into the email, reset a password, and be able to have access to the profile directly if it needed to be or whatnot. So anyway, on the Google Business Profile side of things, I mean, I've probably had the most experience with this. I've seen it all. Seen lots of profiles suspended for lots of different reasons. You want control over this. You want to minimize the people that have access to it and use it. But it's the biggest tool for lead generation in many industries. So highly recommend you put a lot of energy into this, but it's also, because of that, it's a little riskier when you have a lot of things happening and this thing's not set up properly. If that's something that you do, Eric, in your guys' brands, you guys setting up groups, or are you just setting up profiles individually, or maybe you're not aware?
I think it's all groups, Lonnie.
Okay, yeah. So I definitely hope that's a common practice. And it's definitely the way to go here. And this is another thing where
they literally are getting. I would say a lot of these new brands are probably not doing that. When I talk to people out there, if I did a survey in the Facebook group, I bet they're not doing Google. I bet they're not doing groups.
Well, you go to Google Business Profile page and it says add a new business. It just sends you down the path of creating a local individual location. So it doesn't even. It's not because that's 99% of their business is just single local businesses, so that's why they do that. So you just have to kind of know that you have to set up the group, and then that group, then you add the profile and you set it up underneath that. But the group scenario is definitely something where Z's might feel that why is that's the other thing that happens. Your group is the primary owner of the Z's profile. And so that's another thing that the Z's would just feel restricted because they see that. But then there's at the Z level, you add them as an owner, and then you can add their staff as a manager if you want to allow that, or their vendors. So those are the three levels. The only difference between primary owner and owner is the owner can't remove the primary owner. That's the only difference between the two. So like there is no restrictions at any level besides that. So like if a Z is complaining that they can't have power to do that, I'd be asking why, because that shouldn't be a problem. So the only real restrictions that come into play are when Z's have managers. The manager restrictions are they can't add users, they can't do certain things. They're really there for posting or updating. So anyway, education and explaining the whys goes a long ways. And, besides just mandating, you just say, nope, this is how it is. Then the Z just feels defensive. But if you have a little bit of education, it says, no, your permissions are just as strong as ours as a Zor, but you just can't remove us. That's the only thing that's missing. That shouldn't be a problem for them.